Good evening and welcome back. Wherever you are listening from tonight, I invite you to let the noise of the day fade away. Feel the air around you still. Let your shoulders grow heavy, your breath slower, softer. Because tonight we are descending. Not to Mount Olympus with its golden halls and laughing gods, but downward, far beneath the bright marble stories, into the darker caverns of Greek mythology. Please like and subscribe to show support to this channel. Now let us begin. There are tales here that whisper instead of sing. Stories told not around a hearth, but beside a grave. They are the shadows behind every heroic name, the quiet echo of cruelty that lingers behind divine glory. They are the truths the poets wrapped in metaphor so that children could sleep while adults remembered. Take another slow breath. Imagine the candlelight flickering as the world outside dims. We begin as all things once did, in the beginning before beginnings. The primordial darkness. In the oldest Greek tongue, before there were temples or prayers, there was chaos. Not chaos as we mean it now. Not confusion, not clamor, but a yawning emptiness. A gap so wide it had no edge, no light, no sound. It was the silence that existed before existence learned to hum. From that nothing came the first presences, and each of them carried a shade of darkness. Gaia, the earth, was one vast and patient. Tartarus, the abyss beneath her roots, another, deep and dreadful. Eros, the first impulse of connection, flickered like the tiniest spark in a cave of night. And then came Nyx, the night herself, blacker than memory, older than fear. Her wings unfolded across the newborn universe, and even chaos shivered. Nyx did not speak. She breathed, and her breath was the cool wind of dusk. From her shadowed embrace came Erebus, the darkness of the underworld, heavy and endless. Together they gave birth to beings both gentle and terrible: Ether, the bright upper air, and Hemera, the day. But their other children were less kind. From Nyx alone were born the Charis, clawed spirits of violent death. The Moirai, three silent weavers who measured every mortal life. Nemesis, the avenger of arrogance. Geras, the withering of age. Moros, the inescapable doom. The Greeks believed that night was the mother of everything that frightened them. But she was never evil. She was balance. Even Zeus, king of the gods, was said to bow his head when Nyx passed. Because she was not something to conquer. She was the veil that made light possible. Let your mind drift for a moment on that thought. The comfort of dark balance. The hush that makes dawn precious. Yet within this calm, creation began to tremble. Gaia stirred beneath the endless night and brought forth Uranus, the sky, to crown her. When he stretched over her, stars bloomed across his skin like sparks in a sea of ink. They loved earth and sky, and from their union the world took shape. But as their children grew, so too did a secret pain. The first betrayal. The children of Gaia and Uranus were mighty, the Titans, 12 vast beings who carried the weight of mountains in their veins. Oceanus encircled the world in water. Hyperion kindled the light of the sun. Theia shimmered like dawn itself. Yet Gaia's womb did not rest with them. She gave birth again, and this time what she bore was strange. The Cyclopes, one-eyed smiths whose gaze burned like lightning, and the Centimanes, giants with 50 heads and 100 arms each. When Uranus saw them, fear clouded his sky-blue heart. He looked upon his monstrous sons and daughters and felt not wonder, but disgust. So he pressed them back into the earth, forcing them deep into Gaia's own body, sealing the cavern with his weight. Imagine, for a moment, the earth groaning beneath the sky. Each night he descended to her again, and each night the pressure grew heavier. The mountains cracked, the sea fumed. Gaia, mother of all, suffocated under the husband she herself had birthed. There is no darker pain in Greek myth than the pain of a mother who cannot free her children. In that agony, Gaia began to plot. She shaped from the flint within her own depths a blade, not of metal, for none existed yet, but a jagged sickle sharp as vengeance. One by one, she called her Titan sons and showed them her suffering. "Your father has wronged me," she said. "Who among you will help me?" Most turned away. Only the youngest, Cronus, whose thoughts were long and quiet, stepped forward. He took the sickle in his hands and waited until the night when Uranus bent low once more over Gaia's body. Then, from the shadow of her mountains, Cronus struck. The sky split with a cry so vast it shook the newborn stars. Blood rained upon the sea, and from that foam rose Aphrodite, the goddess of desire, serene and terrible, born from pain. From the drops that fell upon the earth sprang the Erinyes, the Furies, robed in black serpents, sworn to punish the shedding of kin blood forever. Close your eyes for a breath. The story you've just heard is one of the first acts of violence in human imagination. A child rising against a parent, a wound that created beauty, vengeance, and the idea that every act carries a consequence. This is how darkness entered the cosmos, not as sin, but as balance paid in blood. Gaia's vengeance. Cronus, the new ruler of the heavens, wiped the blade clean and sat upon his father's empty throne. The world quieted for a time. He ruled beside his sister Rhea, and poets later called it the Golden Age. But Gaia, the ever-watchful earth, whispered to him a curse. Uranus's last words before vanishing into the stars. "As I was overthrown by my son, so too shall you be by yours." Cronus heard the prophecy and felt it coil around his heart like a serpent. Every cry of a newborn became a threat, every lullaby a warning. When Rhea bore him a child, he took the infant in his hands. Hestia first, and swallowed her whole. Then Demeter, then Hera, then Hades, then Poseidon. Each time, Rhea's tears fell upon the stone floor and vanished like rain into sand. Cronus told himself it was necessary, that the throne must be safe. But the silence of his wife was heavier than any chain. Think of the darkness in that image. A god devouring his children not from hunger, but from fear. It is the shadow of time itself consuming all that it creates. Cronus was, after all, the Titan of time, his name almost the same as Chronos, the hours that eat the years. And so the myth became a truth we still feel, that nothing born escapes its end. Yet even in myths, hope hides where darkness gathers thickest. When Rhea carried her sixth child, she fled in secret to the island of Crete. There, in a cave cradled by pines and wind, she gave birth to Zeus. She wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and gave it to Cronus instead. He swallowed the rock without question, and so the prophecy began its slow unfolding. Zeus grew in the silence of the mountain, nourished by the milk of the goat Amalthea, guarded by warriors who clashed their shields to drown his cries. He learned the shape of the world through wind and starlight, and in time, guided by Gaia's whisper, he returned to face his father. With a draft brewed by the Titaness Métis, Zeus forced Cronus to disgorge his swallowed children, grown now radiant, unbroken. The moment they stood together, the sky darkened again, and the world trembled. The war between generations had come once more, fierce as thunder. Take a slow, deep breath. You've walked through the first great shadow of creation, the birth of violence, of vengeance, of fear. Each story we'll wander through tonight will echo this one. Love turning to terror, beauty born from pain, light that cannot exist without dark. In the next part, we'll linger in that storm, the Titanomachy, the divine war that scorched the heavens, and follow how even victory carried cruelty in its hands. For now, let your thoughts rest on the stillness that follows the strike of thunder. Let the world in your mind grow quiet again. We'll continue soon. Let's continue where we left off. The air still humming from the first rebellion, the sky trembling from the wounds of time. Settle again. Breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of your breath follow the quiet pulse of ancient storms. We're drifting deeper now, into the dark age of gods and the wars that shaped their thrones. The Dark Side of Greek Mythology, Part 2. The War of the Gods. When Zeus forced Cronus to release his swallowed children, the world changed sound. It went from the muffled heartbeat of a buried world to the crash of awakening thunder. The brothers and sisters, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, looked upon the sky that had devoured them and swore never again to bow. Cronus gathered the Titans on Mount Othrys, their ancient seat of stone and storm. Zeus rallied his siblings on a younger mountain, Olympus, its peaks still bright and raw from creation. Between them stretched the whole of the earth, Gaia herself watching her children tear each other apart. For 10 years, thunder answered fire, sea clashed with mountain, and the heavens split like fabric in the wind. Mortals, if any yet walked the world, would have seen lightning that never faded, would have heard roars rolling for days across the sky. Cronus hurled cliffs into the sea. Zeus returned bolts of living flame. Poseidon struck the ground and mountains crumbled into waves. The world became a wound of noise and fire. And yet the war did not move. No side could end it, until Gaia, always the patient witness, whispered to Zeus a final secret. If you would win, release what your father buried. So Zeus descended to the lowest places of the earth, to Tartarus, the abyss that smells of iron and lightning and fear. There, chained in darkness, were the Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones. He broke their bonds, and in gratitude, they armed the new gods. To Zeus they gave the thunderbolt, white fire drawn from the heart of the sky. To Poseidon, the trident that could shatter earth and wave alike. to Hades, a helm that made the wearer unseen, even to death. With these gifts, the tide of the war turned. The hundred-handed ones hurled mountains like stones. The Cyclopes forged storms that split continents. Cronus and his brethren were driven back step by slow step, until the sky itself cracked and bled light. When at last the thunder ceased, the Titans lay defeated. Zeus did not kill them. He feared the curse of kinblood. Instead, he cast them down into Tartarus, chaining them in a pit as deep beneath the earth as heaven is above it. There they would remain, awake forever, unable to die. That was mercy in the language of gods. Take a breath. Imagine silence after 10 years of thunder. The smell of rain on cooling stone. That's how the world felt when Olympus rose victorious. The sky was divided, Zeus above, Poseidon below the waves, Hades in the shadows beneath. And yet, even in triumph, darkness clung to the edges of their thrones. Because power, in Greek myth, always carries the scent of fear. Divine cruelty. Zeus ruled the heavens, but he did not rule himself. His anger was quick as lightning, his jealousy older than the sea. The gods of Olympus, bright as marble from afar, were sharp-edged up close. Their stories shimmer with cruelty dressed as order. Take Prometheus, the titan who pitted humankind. He stole fire from Olympus and hid it in a hollow reed, carrying it down to mortals like a secret heartbeat. With that spark, people learned to warm themselves, to cook food, to forge metal. It was the first rebellion of compassion, and Zeus hated it. He chained Prometheus to a cliff above the Black Sea. Every dawn, an eagle, Zeus's own emblem, descended to tear open his chest and feast upon his liver. Every night it grew back, only to be devoured again. Endless days, endless screams swallowed by wind. Centuries passed before Heracles finally freed him. Until then, Prometheus was a reminder that mercy can be punished harder than sin. Zeus's cruelty was not loneliness alone. His wife, Hera, matched him in jealousy. She hunted the women he loved, and sometimes the children born from those unions. Io, transformed into a white cow and driven across the world by a stinging fly. Callisto, turned to a bear and set among the stars as a warning. Semele, burned alive when Zeus came to her in his true, lightning form. Each story glows with divine fire, but if you look longer, it's horror by another name. The gods behaved as mirrors for the flaws they gave us. Desire, pride, fear of losing control. Mortals who strayed too close became lessons carved into myth. Zeus punished men with another gift, a woman shaped by the hands of gods. Her name was Pandora. They gave her beauty, grace, curiosity, and they gave her a sealed jar. When she opened it, as she was meant to, every sorrow flew out. Disease, jealousy, hunger, despair. Only hope stayed inside, trembling. Think of that, hope as the last captive in a box of curses. It's a story that hums like a lullaby of human nature, because even in suffering, the Greeks believed something soft must remain. Breathe slowly. Let that idea rest inside your chest for a moment. The balance of punishment and persistence. Echoes of fear. The Olympians ruled from their mountain, but none of them escaped the shadow of their father. Zeus feared prophecy. Poseidon feared betrayal. Hades feared being forgotten. Even immortals, it seemed, were haunted by endings they could not meet. Mortals looked up to the sky and prayed for protection, but every prayer carried risk. A careless word might anger a god. An unoffered sacrifice could doom a family. To live in the Greek world was to live watched, always one mistake away from divine retribution. That is the truest darkness of these myths. The gods were not moral. They were magnificent and unstable, a reflection of the universe itself, beautiful, violent, and indifferent. The lesson was not obedience, but awareness. To walk softly under heaven, because heaven could strike without warning. Take another breath. Let your mind drift through the silence after lightning, the hush before another tale begins. The birth of monsters. From the spilled blood of fallen titans and the fears of gods came creatures too wild for either world or underworld. Echidna, half woman, half serpent, mother of monsters. Typhon, a storm with 1,000 voices. They rose against Olympus, and Zeus struck them down with thunder so fierce that rivers boiled. Yet their children remained. Cerberus with 3 heads, the Hydra with many, the Chimera breathing fire. Each beast was not random. Each was a memory, the gods' mistakes turned into flesh. When mortals faced them, they faced divine guilt embodied. Heroes would rise later to slay them, but those heroes too would end in sorrow. Because in Greek myth, even courage is a spark that burns out quickly. Let your body rest. You've walked through war, cruelty, and endless punishment. You've seen gods eat their children, chain their friends, and make beauty from suffering. This is the heart of the darkness. Creation and destruction breathing the same air. The next part will descend still further, into love that ends in death, and curses that echo across generations. For now, let the thunder fade to rain in your mind. Let your heart beat slow, like waves after a storm. We'll continue soon. Settle again. Let the quiet gather around you like a blanket. The storm of the gods has passed for now, but the air still trembles with its echo, the kind that lingers in your chest long after thunder fades. Tonight, we drift further down, past the marble palaces and golden crowns, into the tender, tragic dark of love and loss, where gods and mortals met only to wound each other softly. Take a slow, deep breath, and let's continue. The Dark Side of Greek Mythology, Part 3. Love and Death, Tragic Bonds of Gods and Mortals. Love in Greek mythology was never gentle for long. The same fire that kindled the heart could burn the soul to ash. The poets of old never separated passion from punishment, because to love, for them, was to challenge the will of gods. So many stories begin the same way. A glance, a promise, a fleeting touch, and then transformation, destruction, or eternal longing. In their beauty, these tales glimmer, but underneath, you can feel the ache of something older. The reminder that love, divine or mortal, is always temporary. Let's wander quietly through those ancient heartbreaks. Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was the greatest musician who ever lived. When he played, rivers paused to listen, and even the stones swayed closer to the sound. He fell in love with Eurydice, a mortal girl whose laughter made the trees lean to hear her better. They were married in a meadow filled with song and sunlight, and for a moment, the world seemed kind. But the gods, as they often did, watched from above and said nothing when tragedy approached. Eurydice was bitten by a serpent and died before the wedding songs had faded. Orpheus's grief was so deep it split open the boundary between life and death. He descended into the underworld, his music guiding him past the ghosts, the rivers, and the guards. Even Hades wept. Even Persephone, queen of the dead, closed her eyes and remembered spring. They allowed Orpheus to take Eurydice back to the world above on one condition. He must not look back at her until both had reached the sunlight. He walked, trembling, through the tunnels of shadow, her footsteps faint behind him. And when the first sliver of daylight touched his face, he turned, just to see her smile again. She reached for him, but her fingers dissolved into mist. She vanished with only his name in the air. He tried to go back, but the doors of Hades never opened twice. So he wandered the world alone, singing songs that made gods remember how to cry. Love, the Greeks said, was powerful enough to move death, but not to defy it. Take a breath. Let your shoulders sink. Imagine his song fading into silence, the kind of silence that feels full of memory. Hades and Persephone. Not all love stories end with loss. Some begin with it. Hades, lord of the underworld, was not cruel by nature. He was quiet, solemn, a god of stillness. But when he saw Persephone, daughter of Demeter, walking through a field of flowers, something ancient in him stirred. He opened a crack in the earth itself and rose up in a chariot of shadows, carrying her down to his realm. Demeter searched the earth, grieving. Crops withered, rivers slowed. The world turned cold. Even Zeus, whose heart was stone when others suffered, grew uneasy. At last, a bargain was struck. Persephone would spend half the year with her mother and half with Hades. When she returns to earth, spring blooms. When she descends again, winter follows. It is not a story of love freely given. It is a story of possession turned into ritual, pain turned into rhythm. And yet, over time, Hades and Persephone learned to share a kind of peace. Two lonely deities finding company in each other's silence. Love again bound to darkness. Breathe slowly. Feel the rhythm. Loss, return, loss again. Like the seasons, forever repeating. Apollo and Daphne. Apollo, the god of light, was proud, too proud. When he mocked Eros for carrying a bow smaller than his own, the little god of love took offense. Eros strung 2 arrows, one of gold, one of lead. The golden one he fired into Apollo's heart, filling him with unbearable desire. The leaden one struck Daphne, daughter of a river god, filling her with terror of love. Apollo pursued her endlessly, calling out promises, his feet swift, his heart burning. But Daphne only ran faster, praying to her father to save her. And he did in his own way. Her skin hardened into bark, her arms became branches, her hair leaves. She became the laurel tree, and Apollo stopped, breathless, pressing his hand to her roughened skin. He could not have her, so he took her symbol. From that day, laurel wreaths crowned poets and victors, a reminder that triumph often grows from tragedy. Narcissus and Echo. The story of Narcissus begins with rejection. He was beautiful, too beautiful, and cruel with it. The nymph Echo loved him but could only repeat what others said. When she tried to confess her heart, he laughed and walked away. The gods saw her despair and punished Narcissus by showing him his reflection in a still pool. He fell in love with the image, unable to realize it was himself. He stayed there until hunger and time took him, and where his body fell, a pale flower grew. Echo lingered in the hills, her voice fading until only her name remained. In Greek myth, punishment and emotion are inseparable. Vanity becomes doom, love becomes echo, beauty becomes memory. Each story a quiet lesson whispered through ages. Beware of looking too long at yourself. The cost of divine desire. Even the gods who loved purely brought sorrow to the ones they touched. Zeus's endless affairs left mortals and nymphs cursed, transformed, or slain. Poseidon's passions stirred earthquakes as easily as tides. Aphrodite, goddess of love herself, cursed her own mortal lovers with tragedy. Adonis torn by a boar, Phaon drowned, Anchises burned by divine fire. Love in their hands was not gift but gravity, pulling hearts down, always down. The Greeks understood something we often forget, that love without humility becomes possession, that beauty invites envy, and joy calls out to loss. They wrapped these truths in myth so we could remember them softly. Take another deep breath. Let your chest rise and fall like the sea under moonlight. These are old stories, but they still live in the corners of our hearts, where desire and fear intertwine, curses that cross generations. Not all darkness comes from gods. Sometimes it flows through mortal blood, passed from father to son like a secret bruise. The house of Atreus is one such curse. Tantalus, their ancestor, once served the gods a feast, and to test them, he killed his own son and offered the flesh as food. The gods recoiled, revived the boy, and damned Tantalus to eternal hunger. He stood in a pool of water he could never drink, beneath fruit he could never reach. From him the word tantalize was born, but his descendants carried his shadow. Agamemnon, his great-grandson, led the Greeks to Troy and sacrificed his own daughter for wind to fill the sails. When he returned, his wife, Clytemnestra, killed him in the bath. Their son, Orestes, killed her in turn. The Furies hounded him for years until Athena herself intervened. A chain of blood, stretching across generations, each death feeding the next. The Greeks believed that curses were not just punishment, but pattern. Once broken, always echoing. Breathe again. Imagine the stillness after so much pain, like the pause before dawn, when even ghosts rest. Love as transformation. For the Greeks, to be loved by a god was to be transformed, often against one's will. It was not kindness, but a kind of immortality. Arachne became a spider for daring to weave better than Athena. Syrinx became reeds to escape Pan's touch. Hyacinthus became a flower when Apollo's love accidentally killed him. Each transformation was both curse and memory. A way for beauty not to vanish, but to change shape. And maybe beneath the sorrow that was mercy, to continue existing, even in another form, even as a whisper in the wind. Let that thought rest gently in your mind. That endings are not always endings. Sometimes they are quiet beginnings. Take a deep breath, slow and soft. We've wandered through the tragedies of love, through gods who cannot control their desire and mortals who pay the price. The air of Olympus may shimmer with gold, but every gleam hides a wound. In the next part, we'll descend further to the underworld itself. There, punishment never ends, and every myth meets its shadow. But for now, let your thoughts settle like leaves on still water. The story will wait for you, patiently, in the dark. Welcome back. The surface world has grown quiet now, its storms of love and cruelty left far behind. It's time to follow the last thread of light down into the shadows, to the realm that lies beneath all stories, the underworld. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air move through you, cool and heavy. We're descending gently now, step by step, into the land of eternal echoes, the dark side of Greek mythology, Part 4. The underworld, realms of shadows and eternal judgments. The Greeks called it Hades, the unseen, not just the name of the god who ruled it, but of the place itself, a world beneath the living, where every road ends and every voice softens. It was not hell, not heaven, but something quieter, older, a kingdom of memory and consequence. To reach it, one first had to cross the river Styx, its waters black as forgotten dreams. The boatman Charon waited there, his face hidden under a hood, his hands gnarled as driftwood. He would ferry any soul who could pay, a single coin placed beneath the tongue or over the eyes. Those without fare wandered the shore for 100 years, their whispers carried by wind no mortal could hear. Beyond the Styx stretched fields of asphodel, where the ordinary dead drifted like mist. There were no screams here, no fire, only the endless gray of sameness, the echo of what life had been. Further still were the regions of judgment. At the gates stood 3 judges, Minos, once a king, whose voice weighed truth like gold, Rhadamanthus, who ruled over the righteous, and Aeacus, keeper of the keys. Together they listened to each soul, not for excuses but for echoes of their deeds. The good were sent to the Elysian fields, where sunlight fell like memory and music had no end. The wicked were sent below, to Tartarus, the pit without bottom. There the titans groaned in chains, but they were not alone. Punished souls. Sisyphus was among them. Once a clever king, he had cheated death itself, tricked Thanatos into chains so that no one could die. When the gods discovered his deceit, they condemned him to an eternal task. He must roll a great stone up a hill. Every time he neared the top, it slipped from his grasp and tumbled back down. He would walk down, sigh, and begin again. Endless effort without reward, cleverness turned to curse. Nearby stood Tantalus, the one who fed the gods his own child. He was placed in a pool beneath fruit-laden branches. When he bent to drink, the water receded. When he reached for food, the branches rose. Forever he stood, starving among abundance. From his torment we inherited the word tantalize. Ixion was bound to a flaming wheel that never stopped turning. His crime, desiring Hera, queen of the gods. He had been welcomed to Olympus as a guest and had betrayed his host. Betrayal of trust, the Greeks believed, was worse than murder. So the wheel spun through eternity, crackling and smoking, with Ixion's voice lost to the fire. And then there was Danaus's 50 daughters. 49 of them murdered their husbands on their wedding night, following their father's command. In the afterlife, their punishment was endless futility. They carried water in leaking jars, forever trying to fill a vessel that could never hold. Each drop spilled as soon as it touched the rim, a quiet rhythm of guilt and exhaustion. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine that stillness, the sound of dripping water in darkness, the faint grinding of stone. This is the underworld's music, not pain for pain's sake, but reminder. Every act leaves a shadow. The balance of death. Hades himself was not cruel. He ruled with dignity and order. Where Zeus thundered and Poseidon raged, Hades simply kept count. He did not send suffering. He received it. To him came all things eventually, the proud and the humble, the divine and the forgotten. The Greeks respected him for that. They whispered his name rather than spoke it aloud, calling him instead Pluton, the wealthy one, because the earth's riches, gems and metals, lay hidden under his rule, just as souls did. He was wealth itself, the kind no one wanted but everyone owed. His queen, Persephone, moved among the dead like a flicker of spring wind in a cold cave. Her touch softened the silence. Flowers grew where her feet passed, even in shadow. But she, too, carried melancholy, a reminder that even beauty can belong to darkness. There were other rivers, too, the Acheron of woe, the Lethe of forgetfulness, the Phlegethon of fire, and the Cocytus of lamentation. The dead drank from Lethe to forget their lives before reincarnation. But poets whispered that some refused, clinging to memory like an ember that refused to die. Take a long, slow breath. The air down here is cool, still, patient. You can almost hear the soft lapping of the Lethe against unseen shores. It is not frightening, only endless, the meaning of eternal punishment. To the Greeks, these torments were not cruel inventions. They were balance made visible. Every deceit, every arrogance, every broken oath had to find its equal weight in shadow. Sisyphus's stone, Tantalus's thirst, Ixion's fire, all were mirrors. The mythmakers understood that the worst pain is not bodily but the repetition of regret. To know your mistake forever and never undo it. That is the dark wisdom of their gods. That eternity is not reward or punishment. It is reflection. The afterlife was the world looking back at itself. The souls of heroes. Not every soul in the underworld suffered. Some rested in peace among the Elysian fields. An eternal dawn, a meadow of golden air. Here wandered heroes who had endured their trials with honor. Achilles, who died young but glorious. Patroclus, his companion, and others whose names shimmered in song. Yet even here peace was fragile. When Odysseus visited the underworld, guided by spells and sacrifice, he found Achilles and asked, "Are you not the happiest of men, reigning among the dead?" And Achilles replied, "I would rather be a servant to a poor farmer on earth than a king among shadows." The words fell like a chill wind through myth, for even glory, in the end, turns hollow without life. The Greeks knew that the afterlife was not a promise. It was an inevitability, a reminder to live carefully while breath still warmed the body. The Furies and justice. Moving through the underworld were the Erinyes, the Furies born from the blood of Uranus. They hunted those who spilled kin-blood or broke sacred oaths. They were not demons, but justice with wings. Hair like serpents, eyes of fire, voices like wind through graves. When they found their prey, They whispered guilt into the heart until madness bloomed. Even gods feared them. When Orestes killed his mother, they pursued him day and night until he begged Athena for mercy. She held the first trial in myth, casting her vote to spare him, and in that moment the Furies became Eumenides, the kindly ones. Their fury softened, their purpose fulfilled. Even rage, it seemed, could evolve. The Greeks believed justice was not about perfection. It was about balance restored after chaos. A hard, quiet kind of peace. Breathe. You are far below now in the calm of the dead. But here in the dark, something changes. The longer you stay, the more you begin to see. Not the cruelty, but the order beneath it. Everything here serves a purpose, to remind the living that every choice echoes forever. In the next part, we'll return to the world above, to the heroes who walked between light and dark, who tasted glory and madness in equal measure. But for now, stay in the stillness. Let the rivers of the underworld flow around your thoughts. There is no fear here, only the quiet hum of eternity. Take one more slow, deep breath and rest. Let's take one long, quiet breath together. You can almost hear the echo of those ancient rivers fading, the voices of the dead growing distant. Now we rise, back toward the trembling light of the world above, where heroes walk between pride and ruin. Welcome to Part 5 of the dark side of Greek mythology. The madness of heroes when glory turns to doom. The Dark Side of Greek Mythology, Part 5. The Madness of Heroes. When the gods stopped warring among themselves, their gaze turned to earth. Mortals had begun to build cities, to carve temples, to speak names in prayer. And among them rose the heroes, half divine, half human, brilliant and doomed. They burned brightly, but no flame born of gods ever lasts long. The Greeks did not tell heroic tales for comfort. They told them to remember that greatness always exacts a price. Every victory echoed with madness. Every triumph hid a curse. And in each story, the gods watched. Sometimes jealous, sometimes amused, always distant. Take a slow breath. We begin with the greatest of them all. Heracles, the strongest man and the heaviest sorrow. Heracles, son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmene, came into the world under the weight of a prophecy. Hera, furious at her husband's betrayal, swore she would make the boy's life a chain of suffering. Even in his cradle, she sent 2 serpents to kill him, and found the infant laughing as he strangled them with his tiny hands. He grew tall, kind, and restless, a man who could wrestle lions and walk beside kings. But strength was never enough to save him from Hera's wrath. One night, she sent madness into his mind. When the fog lifted, Heracles found his wife, Megara, and their children lying lifeless by his own hand. The horror broke him. He went to Delphi to seek atonement, and the oracle told him he must serve King Eurystheus and complete 12 impossible labors. Only through endless suffering could he earn peace. So he faced beasts and monsters, the Nemean lion whose hide no blade could pierce, the hydra with heads that multiplied when cut, the Stymphalian birds with bronze feathers that sliced through flesh. He carried the sky on his shoulders for Atlas. He fetched Cerberus, the 3-headed hound of Hades, and led it trembling into the world above. Each task was both punishment and purification. The gods admired him, but none offered him rest. Even death did not free him. When he finally burned upon a pyre, the fire seared away his mortal half, leaving only divinity. He rose to Olympus as a god, but his eyes, poets say, still carried the weight of all he had done. Heracles became the perfect symbol of the Greek hero, loved by all, destroyed by his own strength, forgiven only through agony. Take a breath. Let the silence between your heartbeats remind you, even power bends beneath guilt. Theseus, the lost hero of Athens. Theseus was a prince who wanted to be more than mortal. He sailed to Crete to face the Minotaur, a creature born of divine punishment, half man, half bull, imprisoned in a labyrinth built by Daedalus. With the help of Princess Ariadne and her thread, he found his way out after slaying the beast. But on the voyage home, he abandoned her on a lonely island. He claimed it was for her safety. The gods knew it was pride. When he neared Athens, he forgot to change the black sails of mourning to white ones of victory. His father, King Aegeus, saw the dark sails from the cliffs and threw himself into the sea in despair. From that sea, the Aegean took its name. Theseus ruled as king, but his greatness dissolved into arrogance. He tried to descend to the underworld with his friend Pirithous to steal Persephone herself as a bride. Hades tricked them, their bodies rooted to the chairs they sat on, unable to rise. Only Heracles, passing through, freed Theseus. He returned home aged, bitter, and unloved. A hero turned ghost among his own people. The Greeks did not hide such endings. They whispered them so no man would mistake glory for safety. Achilles, the beautiful rage. In the songs of the Iliad, Achilles is the embodiment of brilliance and fury. His mother, the sea goddess Thetis, had dipped him in the river Styx, making his body invulnerable except for one small place, the heel by which she held him. He was faster than any mortal, deadlier than any foe, and beloved of the gods. But pride was his undoing. When King Agamemnon insulted him by stealing his prize of war, Achilles withdrew from battle. His absence cost countless lives. When his friend Patroclus was slain, wearing his armor, Achilles' grief turned to madness. He returned to the fight, slaughtering Trojan after Trojan until he met Hector. He dragged Hector's body around the walls of Troy for days, deaf to the pleas of the dead man's father. When his rage finally cooled, he saw what he had become. He returned Hector's body with tears, but fate had already taken its aim. An arrow found his heel, and he fell, a godlike man brought down by the only part of him that was still human. Even Achilles, the brightest of heroes, could not outrun prophecy. The Greeks sang his name, but always softly, as if afraid to wake the storm he left behind. Oedipus, the king of curses. Not all heroes wielded swords. Some fought against fate itself. Oedipus was born under a prophecy that he would kill his father and marry his mother. His parents, horrified, left him to die on a mountain, but a shepherd found and raised him, unaware of his royal blood. Years later, Oedipus heard the prophecy for himself and fled, determined to escape it. On the road, he quarreled with a stranger and killed him, not knowing the man was his father. He went on to Thebes, where he solved the riddle of the Sphinx and was rewarded with the throne and the hand of the widowed queen Jocasta, his own mother. When the truth emerged, she hanged herself, and Oedipus, in horror, tore out his eyes. He wandered the earth blind but aware at last. His tragedy was not his sin, but his ignorance. The Greeks saw in him the cruel irony of fate, the inescapable shadow that follows even the purest intentions. Breathe slowly. Fate in these tales is not evil. Simply is patient, certain, like the turning of seasons. The price of hubris. In every age of myth, the same lesson returns. Hubris, pride that defies the gods, brings ruin swifter than any sword. Icarus flew too close to the sun, ignoring his father's warnings. Phaeton tried to drive the chariot of the sun and scorched the earth. Niobe mocked Leto for having only 2 children. Apollo and Artemis killed all her sons and daughters, leaving her turned to stone. Even kings were not safe. Agamemnon, when he returned victorious from Troy, walked across purple tapestries into his palace, an act of arrogance reserved for gods. Moments later, his wife struck him down. Hubris, they believed, was not just arrogance, it was blindness to balance. To forget that every rise casts a shadow, and that even light must answer for its excess. Take a deep breath. Let the word balance echo quietly in your chest. That was the truest law of the ancient world. Every gift has a weight, every triumph its echo. The end of heroes. The age of heroes ended not with thunder, but with exhaustion. The wars of Thebes and Troy left Greece hollow, its people weary of gods and prophecies. Odysseus wandered years upon years trying to find his home, only to discover peace felt strange after so much cunning. Ajax fell on his own sword after being denied Achilles' armor. Hector's son was thrown from the walls of Troy. Even Helen, for whom 10,000 ships had burned, faded into legend. The world turned to iron. The gods grew silent, and men began to speak of a time when divine voices no longer answered their prayers. That silence was the final darkness, not punishment, but absence. Take one more slow breath. We have walked through the madness of heroes, through glory and grief. Now only one chapter remains, the end of the age itself, when light fades completely and the myths fold into memory. We've reached the final descent, the hush that comes after the storm of gods, monsters, and heroes. Take a deep breath, hold it for a moment, and let it out slowly. We're stepping into the twilight of myth itself, the fading of the old world, when gods grew distant and men began to dream without them. This is part 6, the final movement of the dark side of Greek mythology. The dark side of Greek mythology, part 6. The end of the age, decline, chaos, and human suffering. When the last heroes fell, the earth grew quiet. The thunder of divine wars faded to a low hum, and the sky, once alive with gods, looked emptier. The poets called this the dawn of the Iron Age, when humanity lived without divine favor, when winter lingered longer and the harvest came late. Zeus looked down from Olympus, weary, and turned his face away. The gods had always mirrored the hearts of men, beautiful, fickle, and cruel, and as men changed, so did their gods. Worship gave way to fear. Temples crumbled. The once bright marble turned gray beneath centuries of smoke. People told the old stories in whispers, not to honor the gods, but to remember what had been lost. The Greeks believed the world had passed through 4 ages: the golden, the silver, the bronze, and now the iron. Each was darker than the one before, as though light itself were growing old. In the Golden Age, mortals had lived beside the gods, needing no laws, no labor. In the silver, they forgot reverence and were destroyed. In the bronze, they learned to forge weapons and turn them upon each other. And in the Iron Age, the age of now, they toiled and bled, their nights long and their dreams uncertain. It was not evil that had won, but exhaustion. Even the gods grew tired of themselves. Take a breath. Feel that stillness, the same kind that follows endings you can't quite name. The silence of the gods. When the gods withdrew, their absence left an ache. Once, people had blamed them for every storm and tremor. Now they prayed to echoes. The oracles fell quiet. Delphi's fumes no longer whispered prophecy. Mount Olympus, they said, was still there, but empty, its halls cold, its thrones unclaimed. The laughter of immortals turned to wind. Some said Zeus had retreated beyond the stars. Others whispered that he had fallen asleep, his dreams shaping the fates of men in ways no priest could interpret. A few poets dared to imagine something bolder, that the gods had not left at all, but had changed shape, becoming the elements themselves. Poseidon dissolving into the sea's pulse. Hera the air that presses gently on every shoulder. Athena the flicker of wisdom before a decision. The Greeks were never certain, but they knew that silence had replaced the roar. And perhaps that was the truest darkness. Not torment, but indifference. What darkness teaches. The stories we've drifted through tonight, the violence, the punishments, the tragedies, they were never meant to frighten. They were mirrors. In every cruel act of the gods, the Greeks saw their own reflection. Their hunger, their jealousy, their small kindnesses caught between storms. When Zeus swallowed his children, they saw the fear of time devouring youth. When Prometheus burned under the eagle's claws, they saw the cost of compassion. When Orpheus lost Eurydice, they saw the ache of loving what the world cannot return. When Heracles suffered madness, they saw that even strength can break. And in the endless roll of Sisyphus's stone, they saw the rhythm of their own days, the effort that never truly ends. Darkness, for them, was not a punishment. It was a teacher. The night sky, filled with gods turned to constellations, was not meant to terrify, but to remind. Every myth is a memory, and every memory, a kind of light. Take a slow breath. Hold it gently. Even the deepest night is only half the story, the afterglow of myth. When later ages came, Romans, Christians, dreamers, and philosophers, they inherited these stories and softened their edges. The gods became symbols, the monsters became metaphors, and the old fears became art. But the core never changed. That light and darkness live side by side, and neither can exist without the other. The Greeks accepted tragedy not as failure, but as the cost of being alive. Their myths did not promise rescue. They promised understanding. When you look at the night sky and see Orion's belt, you're seeing a hunter who defied the gods. When you see the Milky Way, you're seeing the spilled milk of Hera turn to stars. When the wind sighs through trees, maybe it's still Echo, calling for a love that never returned. And when thunder rolls across the horizon, Somewhere in its heart is still the voice of Zeus, older than history, warning and comforting at once. The last breath of Olympus. There's a story quiet, seldom told, that at the end of the ancient age, a sailor at sea heard a voice rise from the waves, said only 3 words, "The great Pan is dead." Pan, god of the wild, of laughter and fear, of nature's pulse. His death was not just the end of a god, it was the end of the world that believed in him. The world of myth had passed into memory, and memory became story, and story became dream. But dreams, as we know, never really die. They only sleep, perhaps somewhere, beyond the veil of stars. The gods still listen. Perhaps they wait for us to remember that we made them, not from faith but from need. Because the Greeks did not create their gods to rule them. They created them to understand themselves. And in that act, they made something immortal. Conclusion: what the darkness teaches. So now, as we close this long journey, let your mind wander back through the shadows we've walked. Chaos and Nyx, the first darkness. Gaia and Uranus, creation born of suffering. Cronus and his devoured children. Zeus and his cruel justice. The loves that ended in stone and song. The heroes whose triumphs turned to tragedy. And finally, the silence that followed it all. These stories are not nightmares. They are lullabies from an older world. They teach us that beauty and terror share the same breath, that even gods weep, and that every soul, mortal or divine, seeks balance. So breathe with me once more. Let the noise of thought quiet. You are part of that same balance, the small light that flickers against the endless night. And perhaps that is the truest lesson of Greek mythology, that we endure, not because we are stronger than darkness, but because we learn to live within it. Sleep now if you wish. Let the voices of the old gods fade to whispers. Let the stories close their eyes beside you. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, Helios steering his chariot across the sky, and all that was once shadow will turn to gold. Thank you for joining me on this long journey through the dark side of Greek mythology. If you enjoyed drifting through these ancient stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a little myth and a little peace tonight. There are always more worlds to explore, more tales to whisper, more stars to remember. Until next time, sleep well beneath the eyes of the old gods.